very much for joining us and welcome to the Full Stack Lunch and Learn webinar series. Today we're doing something slightly different and we would love to introduce one of our key partners in TidyHQ and also introduce their CEO and founder, Isaac, who will be taking us through today's Lunch and Learn webinar series. Just last bit of housekeeping before we kick in there. If you have any questions, there's a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to use the chat box, type in any questions that you have. I'll feed them through to Isaac as we go along and we'll try to get the questions answered. Isaac, without further ado, over to you, mate.
So I suppose today I wanted to run through working remotely with TidyHQ and Stack Sports. And I suppose we wanted to run through our current environment we are at the moment. So right now, many committees, sports club committees, are suddenly having to work remotely. Some of you, this is a small shift, and for others, it's a large shift, both personally as well as for your organisation. So you need to figure out a way to stay connected, stay coordinated, and Tidy helps people and committees work together and run the operations just as efficiently remotely as they would in person. So you're here on as part of Stack Sports because there's already another platform that you use to run your operations in the cloud, tracking and allowing player registrations, competition management. That all happens in Stack Sports, or formerly SportsTG. So it makes sense to bring these two platforms together, which I'm extremely excited to tell you about more later in today's session. It's especially personal for me because that's how my journey with TidyHQ started. I was a frustrated administrator, president of a local football club and helping out basketball and a few other sports. And I had the playing side of things usually in hand with the league and with SportsTG, etc. But my frustrations and pain points came with trying to get the committee onto the same page. And you could say that this integration has been probably nearly a decade in the making, so I'm really excited. It's probably a bit of an understatement to say that I'm excited about bringing this integration to everyone. But let's get on with it, and I'll brief you a little bit more on TidyHQ. So Tidy brings the environment and the structure for a committee to come together and get things done. When you're in person, this might happen through meetings or individually or maybe with some phone calls. But when you aren't, like the environment that we have now, that can all happen in TidyHQ. Tidy is an always available platform where the right people are always in the loop. Key information is always at their fingertips as well. So there's a variety of tools available for your team to use, whatever role requires of you to work with, and however many people work with you on the committee. You can use various tools for cross-functional efforts, or with the often high turnover of committee members, you can bring everyone together and on the same page and have them up to speed really quickly, like running your regular monthly meetings. Bringing together everyone who needs to be there and using Tidy to share the details as the meeting is progressed and run makes for more effective and efficient meetings. I know one of my requirements or prerequisites when I picked up presidency and was running committee meetings was that no meeting would be longer than 40 minutes because I required people to be home and having dinner with their family. Because if I didn't make that happen, they would probably not stay on the committee for too long. It worked. You can use the membership module perhaps to kick off your new membership drive when you bring your membership coordinator, events manager, treasurer, website producer, sponsorship manager all together on the same platform. Everyone can easily track how the membership drive is progressing and help you out and support you however you might need. Roles and tasks are useful to keep your team together, to keep your committee together, especially when working remotely. And with the usual high turnover of volunteer administrators in the committee, you can make things easier for everyone by assigning one-off or recurring tasks to either individuals or to specific roles, thereby creating a ready-made succession plan for your organisation. So this is TidyHQ. It's a collection of all the things that you need for your organisation to make work happen. The tools along with your team. Today we're going to focus on how to be an effective member of a remote team on TidyHQ, given that we're all having to work from home at the moment. It's quite apt to be talking about it. Now that we've oriented ourselves a little to how Tidy works and its place in your world, let's get into today's content and get your team working together remotely. So what we're going to cover today is 5 now key things. So what a day in the life looks like for a committee member using Tidy, especially a remote committee member. How to connect with your other administrators from anywhere with TidyHQ. What working remotely looks like with Tidy, including running great video meetings, because they're such an important part of working remotely. And what some other organisations are doing to facilitate remote work. And finally, we'll dive into the SportsTG integration and offer that we've put together with Stack Sports, I should say. Of course, committees running fully remotely, well, up until now, were usually pretty rare unless they were state or national organisations, but we do work with quite a number of those. And so I thought I'd give you a peek as to how those organisations do it. So as a secretary, first of all, I grab myself a coffee, probably most critically, and log into my TidyHQ account and quickly scan the dashboard. So you can think of this as your HQ, your heads up display of the club. So it's an overview of what's happening around your organisation and provides an indication of what events, meetings, tasks, financial transactions, expenses, any money owed to you, all appears here in the calendar. I make sure to review any tasks or any of my tasks that are due this week. And I can do that via the tasks area. Firstly, I'm going to check any task that I'm responsible for. You can see anything that's overdue is highlighted in red, and both tasks allocated to me directly or because I hold the role of secretary are in my list. Now that my team's remote, and even before that, it's really important to understand what others on the committee are working on. It helps us lend a hand in the right places and keep on top of things. When we worked on the committee in person, obviously we had committee meetings in person. It was easy to tap each other on the shoulder and phone each other, etc., to try and find information. I know I spent many hours fossicking through the old boys on the committee's headspace to get contacts and old sponsors and all those sorts of things. Now each committee member can make sure all their tasks are being recorded so everyone knows what their workload's looking like, together with any blockers that they need the team's help on. This quick routine helps the committee stay connected and provides great visibility for the people like the president, who's able to quickly intervene and unblock things that are in the way of progress. So this quick virtual check-in will become a habit of your organisation and provides attention and structure to getting things done. And I know for my committee meetings, I'd just run through the outstanding tasks as a starting point, which certainly helped things along a lot faster. As a remote team, sharing what we're working on and sharing the information we're all relying on as a committee, which includes contact information, finances, events, and anything else that might be happening in the organisation. Working asynchronously means that you can still work together, but not have to be together. When you're not in the same room together, it can be hard to know what has and has not progressed with getting an event created, a website built. But by being able to work in your own time and being able to make each module accessible to another member of the committee helps you set the right expectations for your colleagues. This is also very important for volunteer administrators because quite often we know that it's not the full-time job running the football club or the basketball club or what have you. Quite often we're doing it in our spare time or in our lunchtime or in our evenings. So being able to do this independent of being next to someone else is I found very, very important for us. As you might remember from earlier, I had a few tasks assigned to me. One of them was to update the history page of our website. So I head over to the Pages tool and open up the history page and update things before marking the task as completed. Now the president will also be updated as they were also a follower on the task. I also set up another task for Jordan to proofread the history page update that I just did, and he'll mark it as complete as soon as he's finished, meaning that I can get on with some other things. I can quickly establish an event or even duplicate a previous event to give me more of a head start with things. So I can establish event tickets, the ticket quantity available, who they're available to, along with the location of the event. I can also do member-specific ticket pricing for reduced price tickets for sponsors or corporate sponsors, etc. I can drop in all the registration fields that I want people to fill out as part of the event registration process. For sports clubs, I know in my club I was often asking what schools they came from or what universities they go to and things of that nature, so I could understand where I should be promoting the club and trying to get and recruit players onto the club or into the club. So before hitting publish for the event, I establish a new task for Jenny to check things that are all correct for the event. If I do duplicate this event in the future, all of these tasks here will be duplicated as well, making an event template for the organisation. I now head over to the meetings area to understand what upcoming meetings we have and what we're going to be talking to. Running beautiful, easy to follow meetings means that you can get through meetings more quickly. And as everyone is looking at the same agenda and seeing the notes written in real time, the minute taker's job is dramatically reduced. We can automatically establish a Zoom link here with our Zoom integration, which will be with us later this week, or with more people later this week. A video call really helps your organisation with staying connected and makes the meeting tool even more powerful, a bit like this conversation now. Reducing meetings and the length of time that meetings take is a huge game changer for majority of the sports clubs that we work with. For the secretary, who's typically the minute taker, making their job down to a few minutes pre and post meeting is a massive, massive game changer, because usually it takes hours to translate what's being handwritten into a Word document, PDF, remembering everyone was there. Tidy's doing all of that work for you with a few clicks of the button. So a week in the life of the committee will involve different tools for the different actions depending on the committee roles that are in your organisation and what things need to get done. So here's some more useful tips for running a remote team. So apps, you'll find a range of additional modules, some of which we've already talked about just now, such as meetings, events, and website. But there's also other third-party tools within Tidy that connect into MailChimp for newsletter campaigns and things like that. Permissions, you can set different access permissions under the settings area. Obviously, not everybody needs access to your finances area, for example, and you can provide read-only cash reports to your committee meetings, for example. Contacts. So anyone that engages with your organisation should have a record, and their history and interactions get recorded against them. So for me, running my sports clubs, SportsTG and Stack Sports did a fantastic job of recording all my players, my current players, but I needed all my past players, I needed all my corporate sponsors, I needed people at my local government who helped us with, pulling out or putting in goalposts and things of that nature. I needed to know who ran the local shopping centre when we were doing raffle drives and things like that there as well. So the idea is that you can store anyone that interacts with your organisation here. Web pages. So you can restrict web pages to specific contact groups. So you can use Tidy like a bit of an intranet to expose specific information to specific people. So quite a few sports clubs use it for sharing coaches information and things like that to all the coaches. And finally, documents storage. So you can upload all of your organisation's files, such as constitutions, any other historical bits and pieces that you might have, marketing files and more, so everyone can access things quite easily. I know for me, we had to run out to a farm 3 hours outside of the city to try and our constitution, for example. So the goal was to prevent that sort of stuff from happening to you. So as you already know, it often takes a lot of people working together to get an event or a project or task done to just run the committee. Now you can see how a committee being run remotely, even when you're not in the same room, can happen. Some additional peace of mind, Tidy keeps track of all the activity that administrators and your members are doing with your Tidy account or interacting with your Tidy account. So further fulfilling your obligations to good governance and providing an audit trail for administrators to understand what has and hasn't been happening throughout the platform, just in case you get a rogue administrator or something of that nature. If you do end up using Tidy as your website, which is completely optional, you can use your own web domain. You can also bring in your own domain or email addresses as well. Speaking of which, you can quickly establish all of the roles you may have at your organisation. You might have spied that with the tasks area. So president, treasurer, secretary, and anyone else on the committee. You can write down everything that role entails, the objectives, responsibilities, who they report to, etc. And so whoever picks up that role in the future knows exactly what is expected of them. You can also print out all these roles with a click and hand them out at the AGM, which is one of my big frustrations, again, running the AGM for many years, was that I didn't have an up-to-date list of all the jobs and all the roles on my committee. So when I was asking people to put their hand up, and quite often get dobbed in for the various roles, they weren't sure what was expected of them. Just this little piece is a huge sort of game changer in the way that you prepare your committee from a strategic point of view. So you can also assign an email address to that role. So for example, president at club name, any email that gets sent to that email address will bounce onto that role holder's existing personal email account. So there's no need to check yet another email address. They usually have enough email addresses. So why not just make it easier for them? Here are how some of our other organisations are navigating remote work using Tidy. So Tyson Rowling, who actually wears two hats. One is the secretary of the Parry Hills Cricket Club in South Australia and also works for the Playford local government. He's been using Tidy for quite a few years now, and he's also recommending Tidy to organisations through his constituency and other neighbouring local municipalities. Tidy was one of his first calls when organisations started to be told they had to work from home and they weren't sure how to do it. So Tyson has some tips for engaging with all those organisations to keep remote teams engaged through Tidy. First, hold an Ask Me Anything session with your leadership group as you transition your operations online. It's a big leap for many of the committees, so keep them brought in and available to help is important. Change management is usually one of the biggest issues with any IT project, regardless of whether you're a big corporate or a sports club. So making sure that you have everyone involved with that process is really, really important to the journey. Using private web pages strategically, we've already sort of spoken about that a little, but private pages can be helpful. Firstly, the website can be helpful to get an online presence for the club, but also have it built in a way that makes it very easy to maintain for future generations. And lastly, he suggests for an organisation to opt towards transparency. The more open a club is with their information, the more confidence administrators will have with each other and the organisation, and the more effective they can be with the finite time that they have. Andrew Newey from the Glen Waverley Hawks Football Club has found running the meetings online to be a huge time saver and make the club more professional. Glen Waverley also had a third party running their website, which they managed to save some costs on and run everything through Tidy. They also utilise the shop commerce functionality extensively as well to sell all their merch through it as well. But on to the important things. Stack Sports or SportsTG. as mentioned at the top of the webinar, we're extremely pleased to be integrating with SportsTG, Stack Sports, and allowing clubs to further ease the pressure on their administrator by automating the transfer of information from their player registrations and competition system, Stack Sports, into where their committee can be running operations with TidyHQ. To get started with TidyHQ, so we're launching this literally today. So this is the announcement. To get started with TidyHQ from your SportsTG dashboard, you head over to your SportsTG dashboard and you'll find a link to getting started. This is being rolled out slowly, so you might not have it right now, but you'll have it very shortly. And click to get started with the integration between SportsTG and Tidy. So this integration will ask you to give permission to share information, as we will be syncing across the player information, administrator information, or asking you if you'd like to invite your administrators from SportsTG over to Tidy. Any club information like your logo, etc., and later on financial settlements from SportsTG into the Tidy finance management system will all be automated as well. So why are we doing this? So to be more specific about why we're doing it for, well, quite bluntly, we're doing it for the betterment of the game and the community and its volunteers. Volunteers have an extremely hard job, in my opinion. And by giving them a more connected experience between how they get their team on the oval and how they can run operations for their sports club is unintended a game changer for all the organisations that already use us. A more professionally run club with better governance and a succession plan equals an easier job for volunteers. It also makes it a lot easier for local governments that need to give out grants, especially in this environment over the next, for the rest of the year, I'd imagine, knowing that you're handing money to an organisation that has its back office in order definitely makes the argument a lot easier. And volunteers are more easily onboarded and retained. So I saw that personally in my committee. We had the token 5 when I joined the committee, running everything. And by the time I left, our committee was nearly up to 20, or the extended committee was nearly up to 20. It's mainly because I made the onboarding experience and understanding exactly what was involved with their job a lot easier. Finally, knowing that your information is being securely transferred between our two platforms, STG or Stack Sports rather, and Tidy, can give you some more peace of mind. Our two engineering teams have been tick-tacking on this for quite a few months now, and will save volunteers from manually scraping and exporting data and throwing spreadsheets around the place out of one platform and into another. So extremely excited about showing this to you all. So every customer receives the same level of enterprise-grade security with Tidy. So to learn more about security, learn more about our program at TidyHQ/security. We're here to help you. So check your email after this webinar to sign up for a private consultation with us, or head to calendly.com/TidyHQ. Sure Cam will be sharing a bit of information after this as well. From here, and as I said, go through your SportsTG dashboard to get the integration process started and give it a shot. I also wanted to talk about with SportsTG, we'll be providing, given the current environment that we're all under and the stress involved with it, SportsTG customers through the dashboard will be getting 6 months free of TidyHQ, which I hope, I know, having been on committees, hopefully it'll take just a bit more pressure off with everything else going on in the world right now. If you are looking for more tips on working remotely, TidyHQ will be offering some more webinars ourselves over the coming weeks. I know Cam's got some as well, which have been really good so far, and I'm sure they'll be into the future. So Tidy's also running various webinars, and we'll be going into some of those specific tools that we just sort of gleaned over the coming weeks. That's it from me. Thanks very much for watching.
Isaac, we've actually got a couple of questions that have come through. The first one's come direct to me, and then I know Lloyd's hit us up with a couple of questions as well. The first one was in relation to the calendar functionality and the task functionality. Does that sit solely in TidyHQ, or can it be linked or synced with something like Google Calendars, for instance?
Yeah, so right now it all sits in TidyHQ. So there are RSS feeds or iCal feeds that you can feed into a Google Calendar or other third-party tools. So quite a few clubs then feed their events or meetings or what have you into those third-party tools. We're working that out. I suppose what we're trying to work out is, as an administrator, do you want everything that a club's doing into your calendar, or do you want just the specific meetings and events that are relevant to you inside your personal calendar? So that's just what we're working through at the moment. So that's the long answer. The answer is no.
No, that's it's actually a really good point that you raise there, Isaac, in terms of what's relevant for that individual and where does it live. We've had two more questions from Lloyd. The first question from Lloyd's actually a really good one. If we enter information into TidyHQ, will it automatically update in Stack Sports managed systems, or where is the source of truth? And then the second question from Lloyd relates to a regional sports organisation. Are they able to grant access to member clubs within their own area to TidyHQ?
Yeah. So firstly, SportsTG is the source of truth. So right now it's a one-way sync going from SportsTG into Tidy. And every time a contact or piece of information is updated in SportsTG, we'll automatically pick that up and it'll trigger a sync over to Tidy. As a phase 2, we're thinking about two-way synchronization, things of that nature. Hopefully that answers your question on that front, Lloyd. And then secondly, regional sports organisations able to pass this on to member clubs within our area. So not fully sure as to where you're coming from on that one, but we've got lots of football netball clubs, for example, and groups like that. We've got lots of sports associations, like the club that I ran was part of a sports association where we had cricket and football and netball, etc., and t-ball, all under the sports association. So we can link all those sorts of things up, and there's no problem with regional sports organisations passing it on to other clubs within there. And in fact, we'd very much appreciate it.
Isaac, I think that's all we've got time for today, and everyone's sort of jumped in. What we will do, we'll make this webinar available on our website link, which I'll send around to everyone who's registered for today's webinar anyway, along with the PowerPoint presentation, in case you want to look through that. Firstly, thanks very much, Isaac. One thing that we're genuinely excited is partnership and just giving added features to the clubs and the community out there, and in particular the goodwill and good nature of Tidy coming to the party during this time, and extending their normal 1 month trial out to 6 months during these times is something that I know the sports community would really appreciate and be able to dig their teeth into at this time. So Isaac, thanks very much for jumping in. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.